Desert stretched endlessly beneath the burning sun, silent and unforgiving, yet strangely beautiful. The sand moved like waves frozen in time, and the wind whispered stories of those who had passed through and never returned. It was here, in this vast emptiness, that a woman wandered alone, her heart heavier than her footsteps. She was not only lost in the desert, but lost in life, carrying grief, disappointment, and a longing she could not name. She had once believed the world was kind. She believed love would come easily and stay forever. But life had stripped those beliefs away, leaving her with nothing but memories and unanswered questions. As her strength faded and her hope thinned, she wondered if this endless desert was a reflection of her own heart, empty and abandoned. Just when her body could no longer go on, she saw a small shelter in the distance. It looked fragile against the endless sand, almost unreal. Summoning the last of her strength, she walked toward it, unaware that this simple structure would change her life forever. Inside the shelter lived an old man who had chosen solitude over pain. His hair was silver, his hands worn by time, and his eyes carried the quiet sadness of someone who had loved deeply and lost everything. Years ago, the world had taken his joy, and the desert became his refuge. He believed loneliness was safer than hope. When he saw the woman collapse at his doorstep, something in his heart stirred for the first time in many years. He carried her inside, offered her water, and watched over her with a gentleness he thought he had lost. In her fragile state, she looked peaceful, like someone who had finally stopped running. When she awoke, their eyes met, and in that moment, the silence between them felt warm instead of empty. They spoke little at first, but kindness filled every pause. He gave her food, shade, and care without asking for anything in return. She gave him gratitude, smiles, and a presence that softened the long years of solitude. Days passed, and the desert no longer felt cruel. They shared simple moments, watching sunsets paint the sky, listening to the wind dance across the sand. She told him her story, her broken dreams, and the love she once believed in. He listened without judgment, his heart slowly opening like a door long locked. He shared his past too, speaking of a love that once gave his life meaning and a loss that taught him to hide from happiness. As they spoke, they realized they were not strangers, but two souls shaped by similar pain. In each other, they found understanding without explanation. Love did not arrive suddenly. It grew quietly, like a flower blooming in the harshest place imaginable. It lived in shared laughter, in warm tea at sunrise, in the comfort of knowing someone truly sees you. They healed each other without trying, simply by being present. The woman no longer felt lost. The old man no longer felt alone. The desert, once a symbol of emptiness, became a witness to something rare and beautiful. Love had found a way, not through perfection, but through patience and compassion. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, she reached for his hand. It felt familiar, safe, and real. He held it gently, afraid to believe that happiness could still exist for him. But in her eyes, he saw no fear, only warmth and acceptance. They understood then that love does not belong to youth alone. It belongs to those brave enough to open their hearts again. It belongs to those who choose kindness over bitterness and hope over despair. Together, they built a life made of quiet joy. No riches, no crowds, no promises beyond the present moment. Just two hearts beating in peace, sharing mornings, stories, and the comfort of being chosen. The desert remained vast and silent, but it no longer felt empty. It had become the place where love was reborn, where loneliness was transformed into companionship, and where two wounded souls found a happy ending they never expected. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love can find you anywhere, at any time, then you are in the right place. Stories like this are meant to heal, to comfort, and to remind us that hope is never truly lost. Subscribe to this channel for more sweet, romantic, and heartwarming stories that restore faith in love, life, and human connection. Stay with us, and let more beautiful endings find their way to you. The nights grew softer as they spent more time together. Under a sky filled with quiet stars, they would sit side by side, wrapped in shared silence that felt fuller than any conversation. The desert wind no longer sounded lonely. It hummed like a lullaby, blessing their fragile happiness. In those moments, she realized she had stopped fearing tomorrow, and he realized he had stopped mourning yesterday. She began to laugh again, the kind of laughter that surprises you because you forgot it still lived inside you. He watched her smile as if it were a miracle, as if joy itself had returned to the world through her eyes. Every small gesture between them became meaningful, a shared glance, a gentle touch, a moment of concern when the sun burned too hot or the night grew too cold. He started to care for the shelter with new purpose, repairing old cracks and clearing the sand away, not because he had to survive, but because he wanted to create a home. She helped him, her hands learning the rhythm of a life that felt honest and real. Together, they turned simplicity into something sacred. Sometimes, she would rest her head against his shoulder, and he would freeze at first, afraid to move, afraid to break the moment. Then slowly, he would relax, allowing himself to feel the warmth of another heart beating close to his. In those quiet moments, the years he had lost no longer mattered. Only the present existed. She told him she never imagined love could feel this calm. Not dramatic, not painful, not demanding. Just steady and kind. He told her that he never imagined he could love again without fear. Their words carried no promises, only truth, and that made them stronger than vows. As days turned into gentle routines, they discovered joy in the ordinary. Preparing meals together, sharing stories as the fire flickered, watching the moon rise over endless sand. Life no longer rushed past them. It walked slowly, allowing them to breathe and feel every moment. The woman often thought about how close she had come to giving up, how the desert had almost taken everything from her. Yet here she was, alive, loved, and safe. The old man often thought about how many years he had spent hiding from the world, never knowing that love would one day find him in the quietest place on earth. Their love did not need approval or understanding from anyone else. It existed purely between them, honest and unashamed. The desert did not judge their age or their past. It simply watched as two hearts chose each other. One morning, as sunlight painted the sand gold, he looked at her and smiled with a softness that spoke louder than words. She smiled back, knowing she was no longer lost. Not in the desert, not in life. She had found her way, not by searching, but by surrendering to kindness. They stayed, not because they were trapped, but because they had found peace. The desert became their witness, their protector, and their beginning. What once symbolized emptiness now symbolized hope, resilience, and love that arrived when it was least expected. This is the kind of love that grows quietly and lasts deeply. The kind that heals without demanding. The kind that reminds us that even after loss, even after loneliness, happiness can still bloom. If this story wrapped your heart in warmth, if it reminded you that love can still surprise you, and that prove love always finds a way, even in the most unlikely places. As the years moved gently around them, the desert remained unchanged, yet everything within them was transformed. Time no longer felt like something they were chasing or something they had lost. It became something they shared. Each sunrise felt like a quiet promise, and each sunset felt like gratitude spoken without words. One evening, as the sky turned soft with fading light, the woman stood beside him and realized something beautiful. She had not been rescued from the desert. She had been led to it. Every sorrow, every wrong turn, every tear had guided her to this moment. The place that nearly ended her had given her the life she never dared to dream of. The old man, watching her silhouette against the horizon, felt his heart fill with a peace he once believed was gone forever. He no longer felt like someone waiting for life to end. He felt chosen, needed, loved, and in loving her, he found himself again. They did not speak of forever, because forever was already present in the way they looked at each other, in the way their hands fit together, in the way silence felt safe between them. Love had become their language, spoken in patience, care, and quiet devotion. The desert winds carried their laughter across the sand, as if the world itself wanted to remember this story. A story where loneliness did not win, where age did not matter, where broken hearts learned to beat again in harmony. And if anyone were to pass through that endless desert, they would not find two lost souls. They would find proof that love does not arrive on time or late. It arrives when the heart is finally ready. This was not just a happy ending. It was a gentle beginning that continued every day they woke up together, grateful for the journey that brought them home. If this story touched something deep inside you, if it reminded you that hope still lives even after pain, then stay with us. Subscribe to this channel for more deeply romantic, heart-healing stories that remind you love is always closer than you think.